My name's Quinn Chandler. So, some of you I may know we have a lot of customers on the calls, but also if I haven't met you before, nice to meet you. My job at Scanning Pens is focusing on the primary school sector of the business. And so I do business development within primary schools in the UK and in Ireland. So hopefully can provide a good insight into, support strategies and how best to use the reader pens within primary. So, if there's anything that prompts any questions throughout the session, please do, just pop them in the chat box. And I'll try and get them answered either on the fly or at the end of the session. And equally, if we do put a survey at the end, so if you do have some feedbacks, I was going to say some criticisms, but no, if you've got feedback or you want to book further sessions individually for yourselves, your colleagues, you can do that in the survey that takes about 2 minutes after the session as well. But I did mention I've been having a few connectivity issues. So before we get into the crux of the session, what I'm going to do today is turn this camera off so that hopefully I don't flit in and out, and we will get going. So hopefully you can all still hear me. And like I said, my name's Quinn, and today we are going to be looking at the summer school literacy package. So this is a package it's been designed by our head of education, Julia Clouter, who you can see on the slide here. And I mean, I'll talk to you about who it's designed for. So essentially, it's designed for teachers who are involved in the transition process. So, whether that's you guys transitioning students from year 5 to 6, or even the important transition, the main focus one from year 6 into secondary school. So I know, obviously, primary teachers and secondary teachers play a big role in that. So it's designed when we're focusing on transition, and the training package, if you like, supports literacy and learning engagement between primary and secondary school. So if maybe you guys are one of the schools delivering a summer school program, or if you're just looking for ways to engage students in reading over the summer, you can use the literacy strategy that we'll go through today to help close the learning gap. It's really, really easy in terms of delivery. So, it's easy for you guys as teachers and even for non-specialists to deliver this because all the resources are self-supporting. So basically, in other words, you don't need to be an expert on either reader pens or equally a literacy expert to deliver this program and for your students to make great learning progress. And also with that, I'd add that it is something that's deliverable for parents. So especially if we're looking for engagement over the summer, which of course is a key thing, especially this year, continuing that reading engagement over the summer, this is something that we feel will be easy for parents to deliver as well as you guys as teachers. And this training package was also designed for SENCOs who are looking for sort of wave 2 strategies for learners who have a reading gap or an EHCP that identifies a need for literacy support. So as Julia, as I say, our head of education who wrote the package, as she was writing the program, she was also thinking about the needs of dyslexic students and learners who struggle with basic literacy, who may have not, been diagnosed yet, but are certainly in need of intervention. So I'm sure that you will also be looking at the data for your new intake with an eye on the gaps between chronological age and reading age as a group who will need your support. So this program's ideal for all of those learners. Now, the students who struggle to access secondary curriculum or year 6 curriculum due to a lack of reading fluency will also benefit from this program, and that sort of group or the brackets of students that fall into that group as listed in the program are students with English as an additional language, vulnerable students who may lack confidence and self-esteem. They may have been identified as requiring additional support or nurture provision. Also, children who are within the eligibility criteria for additional funding, through things like school meals, Ever6, and looked after children. Another avenue of this is actually if you're a pastoral lead or you have a pastoral lead in your school, or you're passing students on to a secondary school where there will be a pastoral lead looking for a home learning and literacy support package. So as I've already mentioned at the top, this package can be sent home, and we'll look, as we delve into it further, we'll look at some tracking documents that really help that interlinking journey in terms of home learning and in school. So that sort of parent-teacher sort of feedback within this package is available. Now, by combining the reader pen and the Helping Hands Detective Agency booklet, which is what we'll be looking at today, you'll be providing the support needed to develop independent learning skills, access texts, books, magazine, research material, and printed worksheets. So, what will you need for the Scanning Pens Summer School Literacy Package? So, each student will need their own copy of, downloaded copy, printed pages from the Helping Hands Detective Agency and a reader pen. Now, the booklet is free to download, which is great news. I'm sure music to everybody's ears when things are free, and it has 15 lessons and activities, or 15 lesson activities and student certificates that can be awarded for completion. Now, many of you schools may already have reader pens as part of your literacy improvement strategy, so it's worth finding out if you've already got the pens in school, and if you don't, we can arrange a trial for you right away, so you can have a look at the pens prior to the summer, or equally we can arrange those for parents over the summer as well. There are parent trials available, so if you want information on those, again, please let me know. Or some schools are, this doesn't support the summer schools package, but some schools are already arranging these trials for September if you don't have the pens. Now, all resources we look at today, I'll share links to, so you can actually access these following the webinar. And like I said, this is the workbook called the Helping Hands Detective Agency, and also we'll be looking at the Literacy Passport. Now, the Literacy Passport itself isn't part of the program, but it is a helpful document that can support you if you're identifying, tracking and recording reading difficulties, either during summer school, or you want to try and get parents to record them, or maybe you want to start recording those right away so you can share them with the parents throughout the summer, so they can really play a part in this sort of tracking and identifying what's working and what isn't for the student. And again, I'll share more information on the Literacy Passport towards the end of this webinar. So moving on to the next slide. So why would you choose this program? So I know one of the things with the summer schools program and the national tutoring program is, just from speaking to a lot of schools that are running it, is about getting loads of resources available to be delivered without sort of adding to teacher workload, if you like, throughout the summer. I know some teachers are already really giving a lot of their time for these summer schools. So I know there's on the government page, there's a lot of links to free resources. So, why would you choose this one over others, or not choose it over others? Why would it complement the others, I suppose, is the right way to look at it. And essentially, the Helping Hands Detective Agency is free. So all you need to do is print it. So that's a good start. And secondly, students who use this program will develop confidence, make reading comprehension gains, and develop the skills that enable them to be independent learners. And that would be in every classroom when they have a reader pen in their pocket. So, and that's something that, we know is working, because it's something that we've been using in schools already. And this has been now sort of developed slightly further so it can be part of the summer school program. Now, this program is seen as a gateway to reading accessibility that can help to ensure that most of your most vulnerable readers can make a confident and successful start to their secondary school or year 6 experience, which, as we know, can be pretty tricky for students who are entering that next phase with a reading gap or a reading age below the required rate of that key stage or of that year group. Now, so what we're going to be looking at today. So we've touched on the introduction. We're going to look at the reader pen itself and give a bit of an overview about how that works and the accessibility and the capacity it sort of builds within schools. We'll look at the program, so the free learning resources, how to deliver those, so preparation and implementation we'll touch on. And then we'll look at the free transition handbook as well, which I mentioned as the Literacy Passport. And again, all of these will be available for you guys after the session. So this is the reader pen. Now, again, loads of you may have the reader pen already. So if that's the case and you've got questions about them, again, fire them in the chat pod or let me know afterwards. But if you haven't used the reader pens and you're thinking, could this be sort of added to the support strategy that we've got in school, I'm going to quickly bit through the main functions. So the reader pen itself has 4 main functions. Firstly, it's a text reader. So, it takes text from the page and reads it aloud. It'll read text-based materials from tiny font sizes of 7 up to huge font size of 24. So, if you're creating worksheets, you can just create them in normal modern fonts that we see as dyslexia-friendly fonts, and it'll be able to read all of those back. Unfortunately, it's not designed to read handwriting or, sort of really cursive fonts, but nice dyslexia-friendly fonts, as you would imagine. We want to encourage students to use who are dyslexic or have other SPLDs or reading difficulties. So any worksheets you create with ordinary dyslexia type fonts, it will read those back to you. And the sort of techie part of it, if you like, is that the pen contains a camera that has an optical character recognition, if that means anything to you guys. So as you scan the text, the words will appear in the track display, so in the screen, and then they will appear in the screen of the text as each word is spoken and is highlighted. And this enables students to track and review the text that they are scanning and helps them to build word recognition and comprehension skills. The Reader Pen also has dictionary functions. So this enables the decoding of unknown words by swiftly providing definitions to the user. So it's reading the definitions of the words out loud or through the headphone. And you can choose from many different dictionaries, but the majority of our users use the Oxford Primary Dictionary, which since its addition a number of years ago has really simplified the definitions of words for users, whether those users are in primary or in secondary, because we also have the Collins or the New Oxford American Dictionary, which, as I'm sure you guys are aware, provide a lot more wordy definitions. And we are really trying to simplify the text for our users. So the Oxford Primary Dictionary has been a welcome addition. It also includes Spanish and French dictionaries as well, so it enables students to learn in those languages if they are learning other languages and still requiring that reading support. We have the Reader Pen, as you can see on the screen, has a couple of other features as well. So Scan to File enables students to scan text and save it into the pen and revisit it at a later time, or also scan into the pen and then upload that text into a Word document. As they get older, they might want to add that into coursework or something like that. In a primary phase, we often see that Scan to File is almost used as a pre-teaching exercise, where you might take an activity that you're going to do in today's class and scan it into a pen for an individual. And then that gives them the access to that without having to scan over it, and actually be able to work maybe more inclusively with a group that they wouldn't otherwise be able to sort of keep up to speed with. So that kind of pre-teaching element comes into play in primary with Scan to File. And then the recorder, much the same, you can record. So as it says on the tin, you can record and play back messages into the pen. So these might be Senkos giving words of encouragement. They might be when students struggle with memory, actually. And we have a lot of our users do use it in this way, and they will record their thoughts after doing an activity or when they're working with you as a teacher. Because of their memory issues, if you like, as soon as they verbalize it, as soon as they try and put pen to paper, as I'm sure you'd be aware with many of your students, it's all gone out their head, and they're sort of lost for where to start. So it's a really nice way of using it in a primary setting, especially where you can just record your thoughts into the pen and play them back to yourself as you are writing them out. And another example of how this is used, actually, the Reader Pen dictionary has a history. So you can see history of the words that your students have scanned. And we really like to, or as I've already mentioned, see this as part of your literacy toolbox, if you like. So it hopefully enables the history of the dictionary hopefully enables you guys to actually see words and areas of text that your students are struggling with, because of course they won't be able to articulate that to you, and create follow-on activities outside of the dictionary, or maybe using the Reader Pen or the recorder, of the Reader Pen to actually speak those words out, say them, hear them back. So yeah, the recorder's there to really sort of enhance the dictionary and the text reader functions as well. But again, just dotting through those. And if you guys aren't using pens already in your school and you do want a more detailed sort of run through of the pens, we can always arrange that on an individual basis. And then lastly, you've got the settings. And these functions, there's loads of sort of standard settings, but there are functions that enable you to personalize the pen to the individual student, which is really great. And it gives you control over how they can scan and play back text. So for example, you can add in punctuation pause, or you can slow down the speed of playback by adding word pauses, and also create time delays between scanning and speaking. So this, as you'd imagine, is really helpful for students who have a slower speed of processing. So again, if you're interested in finding more about all of that, we can just book in a demo session, and you can let me know either in the chat or by email, or in the survey that I've mentioned I'll share at the end. So that's the Reader Pen in terms of its functions. Now, accessibility and capacity. So developing Reader Pen strategies in your school will give you, well, two long-term benefits, as well as a lot of sort of benefits within those, but two main long-term benefits. One, it will increase accessibility for individual learners, and it will also increase your capacity. So the capacity gains, students who learn to use a Reader Pen, I suppose it's quite obvious, but if they learn to use the Reader Pen in the summer school or use one at home, they will have a strategy that they can use for the rest of their educational career. And it's possible to reduce the need for students to be removed from class during the school term to provide learning support and catch-up interventions, or, for you guys to have teaching assistants sat next to them, or yourselves having to spend more time with individuals. So it really builds capacity in that way. And curriculum resources will not need to be differentiated to support the readability for these students, because they will be able to access them. And as I say, these students will be less reliant on human support for reading and decoding. And beautiful thing about, especially about using it throughout the summer, is that parents will understand that you have provided a long-term support strategy. And it is worth mentioning that, now some schools laugh at me when I say this, others nod along, but it is worth mentioning that often parents are willing to part fund the purchase of personal reader pens, or support fundraising activities when they see the progress that is being made. So as I mentioned, you can actually access parent trials, so they can see that progress themselves, and those are free, and they're on the scanning website, or you can just ask me for more information so you can share that with your parents, or you guys can book a school trial and sort of show them that progress through the school trial. Now, accessibility gains for the students are that they gain access to the text at the point of need. So they do not need to wait for somebody to read or validate their understanding, which of course is crucial to building confidence. Now, often dyslexic learners have very good vocabularies and understand the meanings of words. They just can't decode them, which obviously we know is very frustrating. And this is why the dictionary function is so helpful. It really means that they can look up a word and get that dictionary definition very quickly, instantly, have that read out to them and really make sense of what that word means and how they can use it in context. And this validation of understanding provides a huge boost to self-confidence and enables those learners to progress a lot more quickly. Now, students with English as an additional language, or who require speech and language support, can listen to the pronunciation of words as many times as they need to learn the sound and recognize that context and then understand the meaning. So that is a really sort of crucial element, not just students with dyslexia, which is the obvious sort of students that benefit from our pens, but other students, like students with English as an additional language, really can benefit from them. And word sounds are all modeled consistently, so there's no variation in terms of accents and stuff like that. As well, the reader pen's discrete support, the student can use personal headphones and listen to the word as many times as they need to support their understanding, and no one knows how much support they're actually accessing. And this can be a big factor for students who are becoming self-conscious and do not want to be identified as a learner who needs additional support. So again, hand in hand with that is another advantage, is the early implementation, is that peers become familiar with the use of technology, and that helps removing any sort of in-class stigmas. And I said at the top, my work's with primaries, and I do find that the stigma issue is a lot less, but it is great, especially when you're implementing them in sort of year 5, the students are all quite familiar with them, and it's almost quite cool in a way to have a gadget, if you like, that's supporting you, but equally it is really discreet and sort of inconspicuous in its use in class, if you like. Now we move on to our next slide. So we can actually take a look at the resources. So let's look at the second component, if you like, which is of the Scanning Pen Summer School package, which is the Helping Hands Detective Agency workbook, which again is free to download for you guys. I'll share links of where you can download that as soon as we finish the activities today. Now, this includes 15 activities, a reading activity on the left-hand side of the page and a supported learning activity on the right-hand side of the page. Now, each activity stands alone, or they can be used as a starter activity to be introducing students to the reader pen. The content is actually corresponding to the Key Stage 2 curriculum for geography. So you'll find lots of starting points for investigation and topic work. And also many of the keywords that students should already be familiar with will be within the stories and the activities. At the top right hand of each page is a blue band that will tell you what function of the reader pen you'll be learning how to use. And it will also tell you what equipment you might need. For example, in one of the tasks, it's talking about scanning words to a file. So you would need the reader pen and a computer and the lead that connects the two. But again, you can use them to do that, or you can just use them as these literacy activities. A bit more about the resources themselves and the characters within them. So there are 5 characters in the story, and each of them has some learning challenges and some approaches. Well, Each of them has some learning challenges and some approaches finding the support they need to complete the tasks. So for example, Eureka's a tech dude. He's dyslexic and uses a reader pen to help him. He's quite shy, he's very bright, and he's a good friend to Sasha. So the quality that Eureka models is perseverance. He'll keep working the problem and help others to join the dots. Now, all of the characters are based on the learning pedagogy called Building Learning Power. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a strategy that's been popular in primary schools for the last 10 years or so. And it really helps to build metacognition and helps children to identify their learning skills. Now, the story is written for learners between, it's vast. So it's written for learners between the ages of 6 and 13 and has this smart tech theme throughout. So, for example, another character, Winston, he has a pocket drone that he can fly into the sky, and this helps him to see the bigger picture. Sasha's always running around, so she finds her smartwatch very helpful to keep track of things that she needs to do. And feedback from students who've already completed this program, they've all said that they really like the top tech theme. It's on trend, and they found the booklet really helpful in learning how to use the reader pen, but also really engaging in terms of the story and the theme, which is it's crucial. There's loads of great resources out there, but actually engaging the student is key. And one of the bullet points I said about today's session is finding something that will engage students to read over the summer. You might have just got them back from not just, but we've had such a long layoff over the last year and a half, which we don't want to dwell on too much, but you might have really spent a lot of time re-engaging a lot of your learners in reading, and anything that we can now keep them engaged in over the summer, reading being one of the key points, will stand them in good stead come September, won't it? And obviously for the rest of their life. So yeah, I think it's a huge thing that we've had great feedback in terms of the engagement levels of students when reading this story. So building learning power and nurture provision. So we've already touched on it. Many secondary schools and primaries are providing summer school activities to help close the literacy learning gaps that have inevitably resulted from lockdown. Nurture provision is also being identified for children who are vulnerable. So both of these groups will benefit from completing the Helping Hands Detective Agency booklet. And it can be a helpful component in your transition to strategy. It can be a helpful component in your transition strategy to support children from primary to the secondary phase, or as I've already mentioned, from year 5 to year 6. Now, as our education lead, Julie, was writing the Helping Hands Detective Agency book, she was doing this because she wanted to provide opportunities for children to think about the qualities of inquisitiveness, imagination, self-evaluation, methodical thinking, being adventurous, and also not beyond all, but another really sort of key factor in it was being collaborative. Especially a lot of children who are lacking in confidence with their reading, they might not be as collaborative with others. And we know by sharing and sort of peer-to-peer review, children learn so much better and have so much more engagement, which is what we all want. Now, she wanted children to be independent readers, be self-reflective, and so she used her knowledge of building learning power and drew upon experience of setting up nurture provision for students. So she was working in schools for about 25 years as a Senko and a learning advisor. So she really leaned on all of her experience. And because of this foundation, you will be able to take the themes, ideas, and starting points she's provided and develop further learning opportunities, knowing that your students will be able to access the reading resources that you provide. So it's a really good starting point to build from in terms of resources for re-engaging or engaging students in their literacy. Now, we moved the slide on. Yep, that's good. Now, we wanted to give you a brief overview of the functions of the reader pen that your students will learn. And all the students will use the text, all the stories that the students will read will use the text reader. And there are clear instructions given on how to navigate to and use the dictionary, the recorder, scan in other languages, even scan text to files, as I mentioned before, and also how to quickly find word definitions in the different dictionaries that are included. Now, the metacognition activities include self-reflection, self-reflection pro formas for reading difficulties and attention difficulties, making personal reading progress and evaluating personal learning progress really easy within this booklet. So hopefully the students can feel the progress they're getting, and it makes it easy for you guys, all the parents who are running this, to really see the progress that the students are making. And that self-evaluation, I think, really adds to that, which you can see here. So the certificates and feedback forms are here. And at the end of the booklet, there is these certificates and a record of the skills that have been learned. And if you'd like to celebrate your students' successes with us, we'd love that. You know, of course, we always like to celebrate good success, and everybody likes feedback. So we've got our Facebook pages, and we've got groups on Facebook like the Scanning Squad. I don't know, some of you might have seen this, but it's a group where you can make worldwide connections with other students who use reader pens, find out what they're all saying about their reader pen activities, but also more importantly, what they're reading, what they're learning, how their confidence is growing. So if you want to check that out, obviously the Facebook page is Scanning Pens, but the group is Scanning Squad. And I mean, I say about worldwide connections because we are a global company. So we've got offices in a couple of different offices in America. So New York, Florida, we've got offices in Canada, Australia, India, a lot of other places. So it is really a sort of a nice community that's building within there, and it's all about sharing and just really seeing what's working. And I know for me, I think it's great. I did a lot of work in a previous role on quad blogging, where students were blogging with schools from across the world, and actually like I said before, the peer-to-peer review and the feedback that the students gave on that was changing the game for them. And it just makes it all so much more real. So yeah, of course, we love to see the feedback, but I think more importantly, it's great for the students to sort of share and gain feedback and gain maybe some recognition from others online. Now, I'm just going to move on to the next slide here. So as a preparation activity, we'd always encourage the person who's delivering the program to set aside some time to learn how to confidently demonstrate how to scan with the reader pen and how to solve any basic problems that might arise. So of course, we've got support on our website. But as I've already mentioned, if you want to book a time to run through the sort of best practice, how to use the pen, all that kind of thing, please let me know and we'll book that in. It doesn't take a long time. We can do a 15 minutes, half an hour session, whatever it might be, just to get you confidence before you pass the pens on to your students. The last thing we want is that the pens could really benefit some students, but they weren't ever shown how to use them in the best way. And especially with the younger learners, there's a lot of settings that we can set up, of course, that really help them best use the pen. I think it really gets their sort of confidence up quickly if you can see those first and then show them to them. So yeah. Anybody who's taking pens off the back of this session or has just got them or wants a refresher, please let me know and we'll get that booked in as soon as possible. And this is just what I've left here is just an example of the 2 pages. So like I said, on the left of the helping hands, you've got the short story, and then on the right, you've got the comprehension activity, which is taking you through the different aspects of the dictionary and the text reader on this one example. And you can see they're all graphic as well with the different characters that are explained in terms of their personality and their building powers or learning powers as a precursor at the start of the activity book as well. So those are all included that you can familiarize yourself with before giving them or delivering them to the students. And moving on to literacy passports. So, we've got a grasp of the reader pen's functions and the Helping Hands Detective Agency strategy. And I wanted, as I said at the top, to share with you the other free resource from us, which is the literacy passport. And if you're the person responsible for tracking the learning of your students during the summer school or any time and looking at the progress they're making, you'll find some great little performers inside this booklet that might save you some time and planning. So let's have a little look at some of those. There are many pages that will help you to identify the challenges that students are presenting and that you might be seeing. And if you're not an SEN or literacy specialist, it will guide you to a better understanding of the common features of reading difficulties that students present, and any potential underlying difficulties that might be presenting a problem for those learners. So again, really nice to share this with parents who might either be dyslexic themselves, often those sorts of things are hereditary, or just might be looking for a bit of support and confidence that maybe you can't give them all summer because you need a break as well, right? So it is really nice. So again, we can share these with the parents too, and I think that might really help the communication, parent-teacher communication. That is something that we've had feedback from schools on already. So yeah, something really nice to look at if you have those proactive parents. And then these are some of the documents within the literacy passport. So when it comes to sharing the information, with the SENCO, with the parent, or with anyone else, you'll be able to use this booklet to gather information about how the students made progress with you, any concerns that might be ongoing and the need for further investigation. And it will give you a quick way to really record the evidence about that particular learning challenge that you've observed. And again, this is something that I'm sure you guys do as you pass students to secondary school, or pass students year to year, but this is just all about literacy, and it's all gathering it in one place and really making it as easy as possible for you to support the student in the best way that are working for them. And then you've got things like the quick literacy passport, which is all around the use of the reader pen. So we think of the reader pen as being part of a toolbox approach to supporting students' literacy and access to learning. And during the course of the summer school or just the summer holidays, you may be exploring lots of other strategies like color overlays, reading lines, pen grips, whatever it might be, colored papers, concrete materials for math support. And in the literacy passport, as well as all the documents to help support you with the reader pen, you'll also find pages that will help you to create quick literacy passport for the share the student's voice on their accessibility needs. So this is a really helpful free resource that can help the transition process, share vital information that will enable the student to get started with the right strategies in place in every lesson they attend. So all too often, we hear students moving from school to school or year to year, and interventions that haven't worked for them previously are being reused, through no one's fault, just that it hasn't been documented. So it's a really nice place for that student feedback within here as well to really ensure that they've got their voice and that their accessibility needs are being met, or at least are documented. And that really brings us sort of towards the end. We have, lots of additional resources that are pictured here. So no matter what sort of sector you're teaching in, I've got loads of these resources that are all on the web page, and some of them I've ran through today, and again I'll be happy to run through them individually with you guys in more detail. And I will share the survey that I've been mentioning now, so that you can give a bit of feedback or ask for any more resources or trials if you want them. Like I say, we're always on hand. All of our team is stuck working at home, so you can definitely fit sessions in with you guys if you do want some of that individual support. So I'll just share the survey onto the screen right now, guys. And as I do so, I'll just say thanks very much for listening to me today, and I hope it's been a really informative session for you all, and I hope you can make use of the reader pen and the resources with your students.